Hello everybody and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 Valero Texas Open Initial Research Show. As you can tell, you have one more week to deal with my fandom. I am going to support them all week long, and this is the exact same outfit I wore last Sunday. And as we discussed last Wednesday, I'm not superstitious at all. Neither going to confirm nor deny that statement. We're not here for that. We are here for the Valero Texas Open. Did you have Scotty Scheffler outright? Did you play any Corrales? Did you have Chad Ramey? Did you have any successful DFS? My match play DFS was absolutely atrocious, and yet I had a very profitable weekend thanks to the Corrales DFS. Happened to do pretty well at the DFS portion on that slate. But we're moving on to the Valero Texas Open. It's going to be a fun week. There's going to be a few players, most notably Richard Bland, trying to qualify for the Masters. It's the last chance to qualify, with the Masters being next week. So very fun times here for the PGA Tour. So let's not waste any more time. All stats provided tonight and every night are provided by FantasyNational.com. It's an amazing resource. It is what allowed me to be so successful at the Corrales. I ended up with my first podium finish in a large GPP, so quite a bit of success, and it's all due to Fantasy National. Go check them out. It is well worth the investment. In the comments, in the description of the YouTube video and in Twitch, there are links to my social media where I post my betting cards for the week. Any interesting research that I find throughout the week leading up to the tournament. And then also in the description of both Twitch and YouTube, there is an email to reach out to me if you want to be a part of bonus content. Things such as bonus videos, my tournament fact sheet, which has my favorite, wagers and pivots and my top fades and such. So if you want to be a part of that content, make sure you reach out to the email in the description as well. And then finally, chat is open. We are live. Want to hear about everything this past week, from match play to Corrales. Even if you want to talk a little March Madness, if your team is one of the final four, let's have some friendly banter in the chat. Or in the comments if you're not able to catch the show live. So without any further ado, let's do our initial research for the 2022 Valero. And first, we're going to start here at the Gcsaa tournament fact sheet. And let me bring up chat, make sure I have those up and going. I believe, is Twitch not going? Yeah, there it is. Okay. We are here at the Valero, the TPC San Antonio Oaks course in San Antonio, Texas. It is a par 72 that measures just over 7,400 yards. It's a pretty long course. It can play a little bit under that. In fact, I believe it was 2020 it did. But most of the time it does play pretty darn long, so we'll take a pretty hard look into some long course metrics this week. The stimp is actually rather slow by PGA Tour standards. It runs to about 11, which is about average. Sometimes they do run them slower if there is a lot of wind projected. And I took a casual look today. It doesn't appear that there is going to be a lot of wind this week, but again, that is 4 or 5 days out. Things can change hourly, it seems, but the early look seems to be rather calm for San Antonio this week. The San Antonio Oaks course has slightly larger greens than the average tour event, 6,400 square feet here, average being about 6,000. Not a lot of rough and a decent amount of fairway. And honestly, you don't see many bunkers here. It is just a wide open expanse of green and native area, to be fair. There are 3 holes with water in play. This is a Greg Norman design, designed in 2010. We are on Bermuda, but it is overseeded with Poa Trivialis, but it does play true to Bermuda. It is rather average to slow Bermuda, but we are on Bermuda. Rye and fescue in the fairway, rye and fescue in the rough. The most notable renovations mentioned here and here is with the bunkering and the addition or improvement to sand conditions. So that is a look at the TPC San Antonio Oaks course. Again, a fairly long par 72, average to maybe even slow Bermuda greens overseeded with POA. Not a lot of rough at all. A little bit larger than average tour event green size. Yeah, that is a look at TPC San Antonio from a Gcsaa tournament fact sheet view. Close out of that. Now we're going to come to Fantasy National, and again, these rankings and stats, they don't reflect the Corrales. They will not have the match play. As far as I know, they haven't had those stats in here historically. If they do, then fantastic. But I can't conceive of a way they would accurately track that data just due to the format. So the Corrales statistics aren't in here yet. I'm hoping they'll be in here tomorrow. And then we can get a full and most up-to-date view of the players in the field this week. But I went ahead and filtered down to the last 6 months, which is going to be the start of this PGA Tour season. In fact, let me just double check that, because we are starting to get further into the calendar year. I'm going to go with all records of of 2022 and of the 2022 season. Yeah, so it's 50 rounds by Brian Stewart. I believe that should go back to the Fortinet. Yeah. So, sorry, just double checking my my math there. So I am going to filter it down to the last 36 rounds now that we're starting to get a pretty good idea of the players from the fall and the early portion of the calendar year, who's been playing well and who hasn't. But of the players so far in the field this week at the Valero, your top performers in the past 36 rounds, you have Hideki, Luke List, Denny McCarthy, Rory, Maverick McNeely, Corey Connors, Russell Knox, Patton Kizzire, Matthias Schwab, and Gary Woodland. Schwab coming off a decent performance at the Corrales, backed up a little bit on Sunday, but was right there for the majority of Saturday. Corey Connors, off of his third place finish in the match play. McNeely played well in the match play. So a lot of good stuff here. Let's see, trying to venture down, Johnny Vegas played extremely well at the Corrales. Just like Johnny Vegas things, his putter didn't cooperate on Sunday, or else he was probably going to be the winner. He played fantastic down at the Corrales. But anyway, so there's a look at the top performers so far in this PGA Tour 2022 season. And before we get any further into the data, I always like to look at the course breakdown in Fantasy National and get a good scorecard view, a graphical view of what we're looking at course-wise. With that, we see here that the first thing I like to check, the 9th and 10th holes. If you are indeed an average difficulty course, somewhere in the 9th to 10th range will be about par. Here it is a little bit over par, so that initially would signify that you would think it's a slightly more difficult course, and that's true to form. So in fact, you have to come to the 13th hole in handicap to play 2 par, and interestingly enough, it's a par 5. So this is by no means an easy par 5. Certainly not an eagle chance. Fair amount of birdies on it, but just as many bogeys and doubles. So that is going to be a theme here, that the par 5s, you really, I don't want to say they're mitigated in importance, You do need to get your birdies, but there are very little eagle chances. The two easiest holes, the two par fives on the back nine, one yields a 2% eagle rate, which is a decent chance by PGA Tour standards. It is the easiest hole, does play to a 4/10 under par, so you do need to get your birdie here. And then the closing 18th hole is, I wouldn't say easy by any means, but plays to just over a 10th under par, so what, 800ths. You do have the very short 17th, which plays to about a quarter stroke under par. But very quickly the course gets more difficult. For example, the toughest hole, the par 4 fourth, quarter of a shot over par. The second most difficult, quarter shot over par. All the way down to, to the sixth most difficult, to a 10th over par. This course can yield some big numbers in a hurry. So, and a lot of the length here are in the par fives. Now they are not necessarily true three-shotters, in the sense that the Corrales, the par fives on the back were true three-shot par fives. If you are certainly out of position here at TPC San Antonio, they're going to be three-shot par fives very easily. But your longer hitters who find the fairway will have a go at these par fives, especially the two on the back. The two on the front might play to more traditional three-shotters, although the long hitters can still get there. But the length of the course is in the par fives, so you've got all of them on the scorecard measured close to or over 600 yards. The shortest being 567. You've got a 591 very close to 600, and then the two on the front over 600. And you do have some long par threes here as well. You've got 213 yards. You've got 207. You've got 241. And then a 183, so some long par threes as well. Similar in style to the Corrales in terms of where the length comes in, just not as long as the Corrales. There's a look at the scorecard view of TPC San Antonio. Let's come down and look through some of the graphs here. Average stroke gained by shot type per round. You'll see approach and then putting, off the tee and around the green. A pretty normal, distribution or graph here of most PGA Tour events. And you go up in the leaderboard, the putting really skyrockets in the top fives, but I want you to notice that the off the tee starts gaining quite a bit of ground in relation to the around the green. And then you move to the winners, it's a whole lot of approach, a whole lot of putting, but that off the tee really, really gains momentum. So again, I'll go from 10s to 5s to 1. So here's your top 10s. Off the tee is a little bit above around the green, but nothing astronomical, I would say. Then the top 5s, it really starts to gain some steam over the around the green. Again, the two major factors are always going to be there. And then your winners, the off the tee really gains a lot of credence. So we're going to be looking at off the tee metrics a lot this week. And then you'll see here on the winners, ball striking more apropos than short game, to be expected. So I'm going to keep it on the winners. Let's move down to the average strokes gained by hole by par. For the winners, it was a lot of par fives. Like I mentioned, you do have to get your birdies. Those are some of the only birdie opportunities there are on the course, save the 17th. So par fives and then the par threes and par fours. We kind of saw this with the Corrales a little bit, that the par threes really kind of took precedence. We moved down to the top fives. It's still par fives. The par threes lose a little bit of importance to the par fours. And then to the top tens, it's what you would kind of expect a normal graph to look like, fives and then fours and then threes. So again, as you move up the leaderboard, I'm going to skip top fives. As you move up the leaderboard from top tens to winners, par fives are still most important, but the par threes do gain significant importance. So we're going to look at off the tee. We're going to look at par threes and par fives. we're trying to figure out if there's a range of par fours we can narrow in on and see what range is most common for these winners, these top fives, top tens, and perhaps focus in on that instead of just a broad par four look. I am going to switch this to the top tens. We look at the whole composition. The par threes, again, two of the four measure from 200 to 225. You do have a very long par three and a average-ish length. So the par threes fairly long, but we'll see if there's a range, especially this one. If there is a range that is most correlating to high leaderboard success, but nothing would stand out, at least graphically, because they're all pretty well balanced in terms of composition to each other. In the par fours, however, you do have a drivable par four. The 0 to 350, the 347, the 17th, which is the second easiest hole on the course, placed about a quarter of a stroke under par. A decent enough eagle chance by par four standards, but certainly a birdie opportunity and one you have to take advantage of. So you do have that one, but the rest of the par fours here at TPC San Antonio fall between 400 and 500, 5 short of 450, 4 above 450. So we'll see if there's a range of these that matter most to high leaderboard success. And then the par fives split between 550, 600, 600, 650. Again, at least graphically, there's not a key indicator as far as length, which one might be important, but we'll take a look at that, especially in the data dive. Maybe one of these plays more important than the other. Approach shot distribution, nothing that stands out to me here. It looks like the majority of approach shots at this course come from 150 to 175, but it's actually right on tour average, just 0.2% more. Let's see. If anything, this place yields more 75 to 100 and 100 to 125 wedge approaches than the average tour event, but nothing here, at least graphically, signifies that we need to take a major look at one of the approach ranges. Historic cut line here at TPC San Antonio last year was +3. There was no 2020 event because of the pandemic, but you had +3 in 2021, even in 2019, +2, +1. You've seen that it is played as tough as +7, and there has been no year that it has been under par. So while certainly on the more difficult end of average, it does rate out, especially in the past few years, as average. On the difficult side, but average. And you can see that in the scoring distribution here. There are a few more bogeys than birdies. You got about 17.5% here, 17.5%, a little bit less so here in the birdies. But you can actually see the doubles bar here, very little eagles. So when you stack these two on top of these two, the bogeys and the doubles are more than the birdies and the eagles, hence the more difficult side of average. Driving accuracy here, lower than the average tour event. And when you see that, you initially think, or at least I initially think, well, perhaps they're just trying to hit it as far as they can. That's why they don't care about the accuracy. Seems to be the case here. Average distance, 284 here at TPC San Antonio versus 282 at the average tour event. Doesn't sound like a lot. It does matter. So driving accuracy, lower here. Green and regulation percentage is lower here, which is a little bit surprising. Yes, the greens are bigger than the average tour event, so that's a bit surprising. The course is long, so that could mitigate it a little bit, but to see it this far under the average tour event is a little bit shocking. But greens are tough to hit here. Scrambling percentage is higher. 3 putts per round, roughly the same. Maybe a little bit less than the tour average, but nothing astronomical in the sense that it's going to be a focal point this week. We alluded to the average driving distance is higher here. And speaking to the large greens and the length of the course, the proximity is quite a bit further away than the average tour event, about 1.5 feet. So there is a look at the course, TPC San Antonio, from a scorecard and graphical view. Let's move on to the historic conditions. And again, no tournament in 2020 due to the pandemic. All of 2021 was average or difficult. 2018 average to difficult. So it tends, for me, I would tend to think it's going to be on the average to difficult side. Now, having said that, if there's not a lot of wind, it is going to play easier. Hey, you think this is Doug Ginn's tournament to lose, huh? Well, I think a lot of people have said that in the past, and we're all still waiting on the Ginn Reaper. Certainly a good player. We're just waiting for it all to click, especially with that putter. But P, how you doing? Hope your weekend went well. How did you do in match play with your wagers? Did you play any Corrales? I didn't see you at the Wednesday show. If you didn't catch the intro, my match play was absolutely atrocious. I don't think I did anything right with match play, and yet it was a very, very profitable weekend thanks to the Corrales. So hopefully you had a good weekend. Thanks for jumping on like you always do. But coming back to TPC San Antonio, as I alluded to, we are on Bermuda. It is overseeded with POA, but we are on Bermuda. The greens are generally very receptive. Hitting fairways has been difficult. Green speeds, Velcro to average. Again, they get quite a bit of wind here, so they do keep the greens slower. And the course length has always been over 7,400 minus 2019 when they shortened it to, I imagine, in the high 7,300s. So there's a look at the past course conditions. I barely played either tourney. Hey, I mean, sometimes you just need a week off. Let the bank account kind of settle down, get some stabilization. But yeah, thanks. I posted on social media. I actually got my first podium finish. Wasn't a win, but I got my first podium finish in a large GPP. So it was a very successful week. Could have been a lot better, but I will not complain about a podium finish. So there's a look at the Valero Texas Open past course conditions. We'll move on to the tournament history tab here on Fantasy National, and the guys that have historically played this event very well. Your defending champion is Jordan Spieth. Played extremely well. It's his first win in quite a long time. Broke the slump, as they said. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was. You should check that lineup. It was pretty darn strong. It's pretty darn strong. But anyway, so Jordan Spieth, your defending champion. 2019 champ Corey Connors is here. 2017 Kevin Chappell. 2018 Andrew Landry is here. 2017 Corey Connors. 2016 Charlie Hoffman. Charlie Hoffman is by far and away the player with the most success at this course. Again, I generally don't go back to 2016, so in the past 4 seasons, he's had 2 runner-ups, all 4 cuts made. He does have a clunker, but a middling and 2 runner-up finishes. Loves this course, loves playing in Texas, makes a whole lot of sense. Corey Connors, 3 for 3, one of them being a win. Kevin Chappell won in 2017. Now, he is working back from injury, so he did miss the cut last year. Is starting to play better. Chris Kirk, 2 for 4, but those 2 cuts made doubled as top 10s. You've got Kevin Streelman, 2 top 10s and a middling to clunker. Let's see. You've got Martin Laird, 4 for 4. 2 of them being top 20s and then 2 middlings. So really good success here at TPC San Antonio. Let's see if we can find P's man here, the Ginn Reaper. He's only played it once. He did make the cut last year, so we'll be looking into that a little bit, see what worked and what didn't work for him. But at least in the one time he did play, he did make the cut here. So there is a look at the players that have historically played this event very well. On the other end of the spectrum, guys that have not played this event very well for whatever reason. CT Pan, 0 for 3. Makes a whole lot of sense. He is not a long hitter by any means. He absolutely needs a a precision style course, a strategic course. That's why he generally plays well at places like Harbortown. Let's see, places like the RSM. Things or courses that don't rely on length. This is not one of those courses, so CT Payne generally struggles here for the reasons I just mentioned. Patrick Rogers, 0 for 2, coming off a miscut at the Corrales, which hurt because I had quite a bit of him. Kelly Craft, 1 for 3, but a middling finish, and then 2 seemingly really bad years. Bo Hostler, 3 for 4. He is from Texas. He's 3 for 4, but middling and 2 clunker of made cuts. Surprising to see him 3 for 4 and yet very high in the negative strokes gained. Let's see, Kramer Hitchcock 0 for 2, a very good week at the Corrales. So he's been, at least very recent form playing well. Roger Sloan 0 for 2, Burgoon 0 for 2. You've got Austin Cook 1 for 3, Tyler Duncan 1 for 3, JJ Spawn 2 for 4, Yeager 0 for 2, Luke Donald 0 for 3. Again, I don't generally go back to 2016, so in the stats that I collect, 0 for 3. Nick Watney, 1 for 4 with a top 20, but his other 3 were miscuts. So there's a look at the players that historically don't play this course very well. And again, I'll get into it a lot into the David F show, but I'll bring up the breakout that I make in Microsoft Excel that breaks out the strokes gained total in different ways. So there is a look at the past performance in Fantasy National terms, strokes gained total. I will bring up the leaderboard here, at least from last year, just to kind of get an idea if we want to get through or look at some factors maybe. But first thing we always do once we go through course breakdown and the Gcsaa and all that, we saw that we are on Bermuda. I'm not going to add any speed filters right now. As I click on speed, I meant to click Bermuda. So I'm not going to add any speed filters right now. We definitely, at least I am very, very, very confident that it's not going to be fast or lightning. It's always been average, and even last year I played Velcro. So I'm not going to add any speed filter just yet, just for Bermuda. Again, since the start of the 2022 PGA Tour season, I don't think there's quite 30. Well, there are 36 rounds. Back to the Sanderson Farms, yeah, that's fine. Again, with no speed filter, there's a lot more rounds than I thought there would be. So your top putters on Bermuda this PGA Tour season: Martin Traynor, Adam Hadwin, Adam Long, Denny McCarthy, Brendan Todd, Chesson Hadley, Nick Watney, Scott Stallings, Vincent Whaley, and Robert Streb. So I believe it was Watney that did not have very good course performance in the past. Let's see. I'm trying to think of these others. I didn't see them in the high or low. Maybe Whaley was low. But those are your top putters on Bermuda so far this PGA Tour season. I'm going to take the Bermuda filter off. One of the things that we're also really confident in is long courses. And just due to the few rounds there are, I'm actually going to, take off the season filter. I am going to go back to the last calendar year, which, the 27th. Let's see. So back to the Valero from last year. Now, in the end mixed condition model, I probably won't include last year's Valero just because we'll have all of that data broken out throughout the week. But just as an overview, let's look at the top performers on long courses. Long courses defined by Fantasy National being over 7,400 yards. So your top performers on long courses in the past calendar year. You've got Chris Kirk, Gary Woodland, Charlie Hoffman, Luke List, Jordan Spieth, Hideki, Rory, Corey Connors, Graham McDowell, Matt Jones, and Matt Wallace. I I do remember Matt Wallace only from making the Excel spreadsheet of past performance. His one time here was very strong. Corey Connors, a previous champion here at TPC San Antonio. Spieth, your defending champion. Charlie Hoffman, your most strokes gained total in the past 4 to 5 years. Chris Kirk has played this event well. He is only 2 for 4, but he does have 2 top 10s. So it looks like, at least from one of the first filters on or thinking about TPC San Antonio, that it looks like long courses could be a quite a bit of a corollary here. So good stuff to look at there. I am going to remove that. Again, with my very, very modest, or kind of a eyeball look at the wind finder today, it did not appear that there were or that wind was going to be a major factor. Again, it's 4 to 5 days out. We don't really want to say that for sure. So I'll definitely check it tomorrow, and we'll absolutely check it Wednesday for the DFS Tactics in case that plays a part of the end mixed condition model that I make. But as of right now, I don't see any reason to factor in a calm versus windy filter. So again, anyone who has followed me for any length of time, and if you're just now watching, to me, strokes gained approach is the most indicative statistic for long-term success. It's the kind of player that I prefer, or the best iron players in the world. So your top strokes gained approach players, I'm going to bring this into the last 6 months. Your top strokes gained approach players since the start of the 2022 PGA Tour season: Russell Knox, Luke List, Luke Donald, Hideki, Mito Pereira, Adam Hadwin, Austin Smotherman, Martin Laird, Patton Kizzire, Keegan Bradley, and Matthew Neesmith. Now, again, this week's performance is not in Fantasy National yet, and we're not going to get any of the stats, at least I imagine we're not going to get any of the stats from the match play, just due to the format and the way the stats would work and all that stuff. Now, the Corrales will get the kind of the par 3, par 4, par 5 specific stats, but we don't get any strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained approach, or whatnot. And the reason I mention all this, sorry, I keep notice that my cameras are just a bit off. There we go. The reason I mention this, Austin Smotherman was actually number 1 in my rankings for the Corrales, and he played atrociously. He was really bad, missed the cut, and a lot of that was predicated on his iron play. Well, we're not going to get his strokes gained approach performance from the Corrales because there's no shot link over there. But if I had to take a guess, he would not be 7th after the week he had. It was bad. So that's the reason I even bring this up, is that don't think he'll be that high, and these stats from the past week and weekend aren't going to be in there. But those are your top strokes gained approach players. This 2022 PGA Tour season, Russell Knox has been playing great. Luke List has a win. Hideki has a win. Mito we haven't seen quite a bit. It's been kind of hit and miss. I thought Mito Pereira was going to be one of the breakouts this PGA Tour season. It just quite hasn't gotten there yet. The irons are improving. Top 30 at the Valspar. He did top 15 the Genesis, which is a pretty premier field. Top 30 the Honda. It just hasn't all clicked for him. He's had a couple of very, very poor putting performances. The off the tee game has actually been a lot better than I thought it would be, because he's not the longest on tour. But the irons are very good. His around the green game is suspect. So to see Mito Pereira 5th is a little surprising, but when you come in and look, his irons are good. He just hasn't put an entire tournament together where he hits his fairways. Again, he's not a long hitter, so he has to hit his fairways. Where he hits his fairways, has the irons working, and putts well enough to win. But the skills are all there to do it. He just has to put it all together for a week, and he will eventually. Don't know if it's going to be even this season, but he will eventually. He's a legitimate player on the PGA Tour. Let's see. Other players, Matthew Neesmith's been ball striking it well. Everybody knows about Keegan Bradley and his ability to hit his irons. A 30-second, 3-foot aim point video notwithstanding. You should go check that out if you don't know what I'm referencing. It's pretty comical. Let's see, Martin Laird has been hitting his irons well, so good stuff here. There's Doug Ginn, who P referenced early on in the show. His irons always are very good. He just has to make a putt. I mean, he's now Luke List. We always talked about Luke List. One of the better iron players going. He could make a putt. Now it's on to Doug Ginn. I think Doug Ginn is now the new Luke List. The irons can be there, but the putting is pretty woeful, to be fair. It's pretty woeful. But you can see, at the Players, he'll top 10. Went to college in Texas. You're right. I knew he was from Texas. I didn't know he actually went to college in Texas. Do you know where exactly he went in the state of Texas for college? Because I'm not certain. And even if it's a little surprising, Gcsaa, that's a good one too. I like that. That's good. If he went to school in Texas, it's a little surprising to see that he's not really good in the wind. Texas, well known for windy conditions in the courses. Oh, so he actually went to UT at Austin. Very good. Surprising to see that he's not very good in the wind. I mean, some players just don't like Bermuda surfaces or POA and bent or whatnot. Oh, okay. So he's from Chicago originally, went to school in Texas. Gotcha. Okay. Very good. It's surprising to see that he is not the best on Bermuda. I mean, he does not like Bermuda at all. But this is the one that really kind of surprises me, since he went to UT at Austin, and yet he's not good in the wind. I would have thought that having played in the wind during his college days, he would have adapted. So, interesting. But he did play well at the Players. There is reason for optimism. The putter, you just close your eyes and hope it gets into gimme range. Let's see. So there's a good look at some of the overview stats here for TPC San Antonio. Let's actually do look at at least last year's leaderboard and see if we can figure out some of the main aspects that played at least last year, and we'll dive into it quite a bit tomorrow night. But as I referenced in the course breakdown and the graphs, you can see here off the tee just how important it was. It might not be such the high numbers that the strokes gained approach are, but I'm going to highlight here the top 22, and that's just due to the ties and such. So I think you all can see all 22 there. Of the players that finished in the top 22, only one was negative in strokes gained off the tee, and even then, at negative 0.4, it was slightly below field average. So off the tee is very, very important here at TPC San Antonio. Strokes gained approach, always going to be important. The highest being a minus 1.2. Again, a very important stat. Now, you do have higher concentrations, higher numbers in the strokes gained approach. I mean, Matt Wallace 9.3, 7.5, 8, 6.5. So this is why strokes gained approach, at least graphically, shows as more important due to the just sheer amount of higher numbers. But don't overlook the fact that 21 of the top 22 were positive in strokes gained off the tee. Strokes gained around the green, not that big of a factor, really. Pat Desire, really, really poor. Corey Connors, very, very poor, although Corey Connors is not the best around the green player anyway. Putting, again, it was supposedly the second most important. I'm not going to dispute that, but you see here that you don't have to putt it well to still be in contention. It is a lot of off the tee, and approach. It really is. This is one year that, Connors, granted he's a former champion here, gains 4.5 off the tee, 3.5 on approach, and 2.5 on putting. You would think, oh my God, he probably won. Well, he did not chip it very well that week. But anytime you get positive Corey Connors, positive and very positive, Corey Connors is going to set himself up a lot for success, because you don't get positive 2.5 from Corey Connors very often. But anyway, so again, off the tee, going to be a very, very big factor this week. And at least it played that way last year. We'll look at historical seasons and historical leaderboards tomorrow night in the Data Dive show. We'll move on into, again, fairways and greens is the driving tab. Driving distance, again, maybe not necessarily the biggest factor. You see here the leaders in driving distance. I mean, you had your cut makers. Will Gordon was a clunker. Cameron Day was a clunker. No, to be fair, was a clunker. You do have some decently high finishes and some middlings, but it doesn't seem like distance is the biggest factor. To be quite honest with you, it's greens, because we saw how difficult these are to hit in relation to the average tour event. Again, for the same top 22, your winner was negative in greens and regulation, Jordan Spieth. But then you have to come all the way down to Ricky at tied for 17th before you get another negative. And then Camilo Villegas looks like it didn't hit a green at all during the week. But kind of like with the strokes gain approach, you have such a high concentration here. 11.6, 9.6, 9.6, 6.6, 9.6 again. So these high concentrations of numbers, you just got to hit your greens here, even more so than what's obvious in an average tour event. And just because I just saw it, I mean, it looks like good drives gained too. Honestly, it might be good drives gained more so than the greens in regulation. Maybe not as high of a density or high of concentration of numbers. I mean, you got 9 here versus 11.5, 9 here versus 9.5, 7 versus 6.5. So I mean, they're somewhat comparable. We're gonna see if good drives gained, greens and regulation, or both are the factor this week. It looks like both played last year. Maybe good drives gained a little bit more just due to the sheer fact of the number of players that were positive, but it's close. So good stuff to look at or prep for tomorrow. Birdies and Bogeys, we saw that this is a somewhat, it's an average difficulty course, more leaning on the difficult end. And just due to my natural thought inclination would be, well, if the course is difficult, you want to see who avoids the bogeys. And while that does play a little bit here, in fact, there was only one player who was negative on birdies gained. So at least last year in 2021, it was more important to get the birdies than it was to avoid the bogeys. Having said that, these bogey avoiders, negative a half, negative a half, negative 1.5, they're not, astronomically high. So it's still obvious. It's going to sound like an obvious statement. It's still important to avoid the bogeys, but the birdies gained was the much more predominant between birdies versus bogeys. So we'll see, 2019, 2018, 17, if this is the same. Because if it is, then we'll focus on birdies gained versus bogeys avoided during the week. Par threes, we mentioned that there are no extremely short par threes. 1 on the scorecard measures in this bucket, 2 on the scorecard here, and 1 here. Obviously, this range here is coming from the one that gets moved from this range to here when they move tees and pins and whatnot. But strokes gained par 3, we saw that it seemed like it rose as you went up from the top 10s to the 5s to the winners. But I guess it's somewhat strong, but your leader in strokes gained par 3, Schwartzel, was a clunker of a made cut. Middling, top 25, I won't call that middling. Top 25, middling, top 5, top 10. So yeah, you do have some pretty high finishes here beyond Charles Schwartzel. If we try to see if there's a range, I don't see all that much, to be honest with you. Maybe the 175 to 200, just due to the amounts. Like the 200 225 has the most guys in the positive. But look, I mean 0.1, 0.1, 1.1, where you have people as high as 3. You have a 4 down here, and Adam Hadwin. So it might be the 175 to 200s. At this point, like, I would be much more comfortable just saying it was the strokes gained par 3. But that's what we're going to look at historical leaderboards for tomorrow. See if we can narrow in a range. That might mean more, because right now it just seems like it's strokes gained par 3. We'll look at strokes. I keep going a year. We'll look at strokes gained, or strokes. Go to par 4 efficiency if I could talk. Par 4 efficiency still, I believe, is one of the most important metrics on the PGA Tour. There's just the majority of holes are par 4s. We saw that there was one hole that measured in this range, 5 here and 4 here. Well, you can see how important the strokes gained par 4 were. 11.5, 9.5, 10.5, a lot here. Let's see, at a cursory view, at a quick eyeball view, maybe 450 to 500. Okay, top 10, top 15, clunker, your winner. 3 more top 15 and 2 more top 20s, top 30. So this one seems fairly strong, at least from last year. What about the 400, 450? Ooh, this one's really strong up at the top. You got top 10, your runner-up, clunker, top 10, winner, top 10, middling, top 20, middling. You do have 2 missed cuts up here. So these 2 are pretty strong, and that would make sense. You've got 9 of the 10 par 4s fall in this range. Interesting. It'll be interesting to see tomorrow if one of these separates from the other. This range is much more top-heavy in terms of leaderboard success. This one is much more, I don't want to say balanced. Like it's still got your top-end finishers, but it takes a little bit longer to come down to your missed cuts, and there's not as much volume or amount in here. I think I'm probably leaning towards this one if I had to choose one of the 2. It would be this one, although this one's still fairly important. It's just interesting to see. All right, par 5s. So we saw all the par 5s measured in these 2 ranges, 2 in this bucket, 2 in this bucket. Par 5s do seem to be somewhat important. I mean, Gary Woodland was slightly under field average. Stanley was bad. Keith Mitchell was really bad on the par 5s. So in the same top 22 here, looks like about the same number of players that were negative. Do I get a sense of higher numbers? Not really. Maybe 550 to 600. Okay, so this is really darn strong when you sort by it. So your winner, your top 5, middling, and then a very, very strong run of very high to top 25, top 30 performances. So that's actually a lot stronger than what it at first appeared. Yeah, because I mean Chris Kirk was barely under field average. Gary Woodland didn't play him well, but when you sort on the actual statistic, that's really, really strong. Really, really strong. 600 to 650, much less strong. Hopefully you all can see that and why I'm saying that. So here you've got your top, a middling is what I would call it. Middling, a top 10, clunker, middling, then some decent finishes here. But when you sort by the leaders in this bucket, you can see just the placements. Your winner, top, a middling, top 5, a top 15, a top 25, middling, clunker. This seems a whole lot stronger than the 600 to 650. It seems pretty strong in general. So my gut instinct, at least based on 1 year's leaderboard, is the 550 to 600. But par 5s could just be it. So that is a look at the Fantasy National Valero initial look. Let me bring up the early or the past performance spreadsheet that I make. Let me switch over to Excel view here. Bring up chat. So again, this is the tournament history tab from Fantasy National, just broken out in terms of where their strokes gained are in all of the measurable statistics. So, for example, TPC San Antonio. I don't think you all can't see that. So, TPC San Antonio does not have any par threes that measure from 0 to 150 yards. So there's no data in that column for obvious reasons. But this is a look at past performance at TPC San Antonio for the Valero. The player, the number of times they've played it since 2017. I don't go back any further than 2017. I just feel like going back too far, players just change. I mean, look at Bryson. Bryson's the best example. Bryson changed, 2018, 2019, just started gaining or caring all about distance. So he's not the same golfer as he was back then. So that's why I only go back to 2017. You can agree, disagree, just explaining why I don't go back further than 2017. But anyway, so the player, the number of times they've played at the course, their average finish, the times they've missed the cut, and then where their strokes gained are. So of the players in the field this week, just at a baseline view, Matt Wallace and Gary Woodland have only played it one time. Matt Wallace came in third. Gary Woodland came in sixth. The one time they each played it respectively. Lucas Glover has played it twice, averages a top 10. Brandt Snedeker twice, averages a top 11. We'll see here, like Jordan Spieth, a win and a tied for 30th, I believe, is his two finishes. Where's Charlie? There he is. Charlie Hoffman. He has played this event 4 times in the past, really 4 years, because 2020 was canceled. He's 4 for 4 with an average of 27th. Jimmy Walker, 4 for 4, average of 27th. So two very, very strong performers there. Matt Kuchar, 4 for 4, average finish of 28th. Struman, we mentioned in the past performance tab. Siwoo, Martin Laird, 4 for 4, average finish inside the top 25. Very strong there. Graham McDowell, 4 for 4, average finish of a 35th. McDowell was right in contention this past weekend at the Corrales, had a very poor Sunday, so it looks like he didn't play that event very well. He had a really bad Sunday. He was right there in contention going into the final round. The other end of the spectrum, we mentioned, or we looked at players that hadn't played this event very well. We mentioned C.T. Pan. He's 0 for 3. There's Luke Donald, 0 for 3. Roger Sloan, Jaeger, Patrick Rogers we mentioned. So before we do it, actually we're just going to do all the sorting and see who has been the best at what statistic tomorrow for the data dive. Let's just kind of get a feel. I'll probably cut it off right here at Graham McDowell roughly. Of the guys that have played this fairly often and have had very good success, what are some of the metrics that they are really performing well at? You can see here there's a lot of off the tee. In fact, you know what? I'm going to start doing this for you all. I'm going to filter. I'm going to take off the guys who have only played it once. I will do twice just to... Oh, that is not what I wanted to do. I wanted the other way around. My apologies. Of the guys that have played it fairly well and played it enough to really, get a gauge. I mean, twice still might not be enough, but when you only have 4 years to factor, you kind of have to take 2 of the 4 being half. So, again, all of these guys except for Brandt Snedeker are positive off the tee, and Jimmy Walker. Approach, all of them positive. So obviously one of the bigger things to factor in here. Around the green, it's positive for per se, but not nearly as high as off the tee, not nearly as high as around the green. We mentioned putting. You can do it without putting. I mean, yes, it helps to be hot with the putter, but putting isn't necessarily a must-have here. Distance is not a necessary factor. Good drives. Jordan Spieth was very poor in the good drives gained. Greens, again, Jordan Spieth pretty bad. Bogeys bad, but the others are pretty darn solid. Okay. Here's one to take a look at: birdies versus bogeys. And again, I'm giving an eyeball view from Graham McDowell down. It looks like birdies are much more important at the upper end. You can see these heavy greens in here. That's not what I wanted. Much more heavy green up here, but these are much more consistent. I don't see a negative in the bogeys. You do have, Kuchar, Fratelli, Stanley, McDowell. These four down here at the bottom are negative in the birdies. So there's not a lot of heavy green as far as the bogeys, but they're much more consistent. So something to think about, but I'm still leaning towards birdies being the more important of the two. We'll scroll over here. Par 3 performance. Pretty middling in some places, to be fair. 150 to 175 doesn't look to be all that strong. 175 to 200 looks to be pretty darn strong here. Nothing negative at all. Like 200 to 225 is not strong at all. You've got some orange, some deep red. The problem is, for me at least, because there's only one hole that measures to this length on the scorecard here at TPC San Antonio. So it's either that one hole or when the par 3s move around, say from 207 to into this bucket here. You can't ignore the numbers. There are no negatives here, but I'm still basically leaning that strokes gained par 3 is just in total. But it'll be interesting to see what previous leaderboards say. Par 4s, yeah, I mean that's some heavy par 4 there, and we saw that at least from 2021 how important the strokes gained par 4 in general were. If there's a length, not the strongest there. I mean, you have some heavy green, but you also have some negatives. Same here. Although you have a little bit of negatives, maybe 400 to 450. Let's see. In here, okay, this is what we saw in Fantasy National, at least for 2021. You only have one negative in Brandt Snedeker. Look at some of those. Yeah, they're old. They're old. Let's see. Ricky, to be fair, has had some good success the two times he's played it. 2 for 2 with an average finish inside the top 20. Kuchar has fallen off a cliff. I don't know where he went. I think he's ready for the Champions Tour. But yeah, 450 to 500 might actually be the length of the par 4 to look at, if there is one to focus on. You really only have one slightly negative player up here. So that's interesting. We'll take a really good look at that tomorrow in the Data Dive show. We're going to wrap up here fairly quickly in the par 5s and proximities. Par 5s, okay. Kyle Stanley hadn't played them well. Bogeys, Streelman, not the best. If there's a range of par 5, so remember there are no par 5s that measure to this length on the scorecard. So that doesn't seem all that important, especially since the heavy green is only 0.7. Yeah, not there. Not really there either, so maybe it's just strokes gained par 5. Last thing I want to look at is proximity, see if there's anything that stands out as far as a range of proximity, because nothing did graphically on Fantasy National. Total proximity, you have a lot of green up here, so maybe total proximity is something we can look at. We'll take a look at that in the Data Dive tomorrow. Not a lot here. Maybe 125 to 150. You got a negative here, a strong negative there. 175 and then 200 plus. Yeah, I don't know. 175 to 200. There's only 2 negatives in here, there and there. So again, for for those who are just catching on Twitch for the first few times, glad that you decided to take some time and watch. I've been very adamant through YouTube and the YouTube videos and shows where I started that proximity is the one place where I am the least confident in using my analytical background in kind of gauging. I still have trouble reconciling, when a graph says proximity, this should matter, and then the data says it doesn't, vice versa. That is the one area where I am the least comfortable with my analytical skills. So I'm just throwing that out there as a full transparency. So in the comments, do you feel like there's a proximity that plays the most here at TPC San Antonio? Is there a statistic that you think that I didn't cover that does play, or that I did look at that doesn't? Let me know in the comments. Would be interested to hear from you all. P, thanks again for jumping in. Glad you had a good weekend, a rest-filled weekend, we'll say. Save yourself up, expend your energy, get some practice, get some work in before the Masters next week. And this week we'll see if we can't increase our financial flexibility going into the Masters. So with that, again, guys, thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate the support. Jump in the comments for anything that you all might want to see tomorrow on the Data Dive show. So for all of the wagers that you had at the Corrales and the Match Play, for all of your DFS contests that you had at the Corrales and the Match Play, for all of your March Madness brackets that still may be alive, and until I see you tomorrow night for the Data Dive show, may all your bets be profitable.